In the Torah and in the Bible, right? There's this whole idea that God creates the world really in 6 days, right? Because on the seventh day He rested, right? But when He looked at each of the first 5 days of creation, what does God say? He says in Hebrew, ki tov, right? And it was good. Yeah. So what does He say when He looks at the sixth day creation, meaning man? He says vahi chen in Hebrew, which is, and it was. Like literally, God looks at us and goes, it is what it is.
No, we're okay.
It is what it is. And everything else is good. For us, it is what it is.
Hey, I'm Troy. This is Darius, and that's Danny. We were college roommates and played football at Georgetown. During college, we threw a lot of parties, but at the same time, we were out in the community doing good. Our senior year, we met a guy named Frank Luntz. You might know him, you might not, but he's a very big political strategist. We started working with him, and he challenged us to take our experiences growing up in DC and go out into our community and make a difference. At the time, we would have never have guessed we would have grew good and raised millions of dollars, make a huge impact where we live and work. Darius, he's the one who's not afraid to speak his mind. He knows everyone. Me, I'm super empathetic, I'm in touch with the community, and I know how to get things done. Danny, he's the go-getter. When we talked about the idea of starting good in college, he came home the next day to our dorm and said, "Hey guys, I filed the paperwork." Along the journey, we linked up with the good people at Chasing the Dream, and they challenged us to go out and explore the authenticity of the American dream. And this is what we found.
Joining me now, Joel Mowbrey, who's an investigative journalist. Thank you for being here.
Look, when we have limited resources, Megan, when it comes to national security investigations, we have to use that in the most intelligent way possible. With the ones who went out of business or got bought out, you know what all the unionized employees got? They got full benefits, full packages, and the non-unionized middle-class employees, they got...
Can I introduce you to
I think he's so much different from everyone else that we have interviewed or looking to interview, right? Like he's on the other side of the spectrum.
We look at him and we see this guy who's New York Times bestseller. He's on TV, but like, what's really behind that?
America has so many stains, man, that we just do not want to talk about. Like we just kind of brush over them. We put up our museums, we give these days, but are we having serious conversations about how that's affected people, especially when trying to achieve the American dream?
What has he been through? What is his personal accounts of what he's been through that set him back, and hearing about that, because you never know. Let's make him vulnerable. Let's get him vulnerable.
Like shed a tear, man.
Let's make Joel cry. Let's see what we got. Let's peel back his onions.
Like Shrek?
Like Shrek.
Like Shrek.
I never took so much as a writing class, right? Okay, in high school, I got straight A's in math and science, and I couldn't buy an A. Not that I tried to buy it, but I couldn't buy an A in high school for English.
Oh,
right?
Look who's laughing now, Joe.
Well, right. And
I'm on the New York Times bestseller list.
Right, and I was like,
What's your teacher's name? Let's shout her out.
Right. No, but the point is that, professionally, what did I end up doing? Nothing to do with math or science. Yeah. But I, became a writer. I taught myself, right? And the point is that, you have to, sometimes you have to make your own luck happen. And then, but that's also the reason why I always want to try to help people and offer, as you guys know, unsolicited advice, right? I like doing that because, I've had people do that for me. I've had people who, did things for me, opened doors for me, right? And honestly, at the end of the day, that's, I don't know, I think that's really what people have to, I think what people have to do is they have to be willing to push, but don't ever, ever, ever think that you're better than other people, right? And that's it for me. Like the people who I hated the most in Washington were the ones who would not make eye contact with me or would not deign to speak with me. And then once they saw me on TV a bunch of times, they're like, oh, hey. And one guy walked into a room, and it was like one of these big, political gatherings, right? It happened every week. And this is a guy who barely wanted to talk to me. And then I'd been on TV, I think, that weekend 5 times. It was crazy, right? He was like this. And I'm like, and I won't say here on camera the word I was thinking to my head, But like, that's the kind of person that you don't want to be around, right? Because
So
why?
it seems like your life has just been a series of people doubting you or counting you out, and you coming back bigger and better.
Well, I mean, yes and no, right? Like, not everybody's doubting me because I had people who helped me, right, all along the way. Life is something that should be humbling if you allow it to be, right? So, like, when I was in my early 20s, I started a tech company, and you know, I thought I was a good manager. I even thought I was a great manager. Turns out, I'm not even a mediocre manager. I'm lousy, terrible at managing, right? And I learned that lesson the hard way, and I think really through most of life, right, it's about, I think so often people want to go through life, no matter what their circumstances were to start, and they want to find external factors to blame. So you have to make decisions in life, but you also have to own the consequences of those decisions, even if you're not, say, fully to blame. You know, if you want to talk about being humble, like, my God, like every single day I make mistakes. I do things that remind me that I have good reason to be humble.
And when you're screwing up every day, what are some of the ways you continue to stay positive and stay on the journey and not let them affect you negatively?
Well, you know, you realize you are human, right? It's a matter of focusing on the things that you are good at and realizing that every day, you know, you screwed up, but that gives you opportunities to fix those screw-ups. And the real blessing is if you can just find ways to screw up that are different from past ways. Then you're growing, and you're finding new ways that you should be growing, i.e. because you've, you know, found new ways to screw up. And so that's really it.
Would you say that's what the American dream is?
I don't say the American dream is necessarily screwing up, but I do think that the American dream is, you know what the American dream is? For me, it's about the fact that it doesn't matter what you're born into in this country, right? Like, some of the people that I actually feel sorriest for are people who grew up in very privileged circumstances. You know, they had everything handed to them. Yeah. Like, this is a country unlike any other, really, ever before it. You have people from all different walks of life. It's an idea nation, more than anything else. It's an idea, right? America isn't based on ethnic backgrounds or on anything else. It's based on an idea that all men are created equal in the eyes of his creator. I don't know. I love this country.
It's like the question remains, like, is this concept of the American dream that you can pick yourself up, be born in any place at any time, and if you have a good enough idea that you can go achieve it, is that possible for every American in 2019?
The thing about Americans is that, by and large, I'd say well over 95%, 98%, they don't want to be prejudiced. They don't want to be unfair in how they view people. And if you can make the case to them that they're being unfair, that they're being bigoted in ways they don't understand, they work to improve, right? But yeah, I think the situations where it doesn't work is because the family unit is broken in that family, right? If a kid grows up in an abusive environment, if a kid grows up, and even there, you look at some of the great successful people of our time, like some of the best comedians, for example, right, come from the darkest backgrounds, right? Or even some of the great creative minds who are entrepreneurs or inventors come from very dark places in their past. And, you know, sadly, but I think probably truthfully in a lot of cases, it's that darkness that pushed them to certain levels, right?
It's interesting the point you made about Americans not wanting to be bigots or to treat people unfairly. And I think one of the conversations that's usually missed when we talk about the American dream is how can each one of us make that dream more possible for others?
Yeah, because I think what you're saying about the darkness and escaping the darkness is true, but there's also certain individuals who find themselves in that darkness and they find themselves hopeless and they kind of get lost in that darkness and they just don't see the next steps.
But usually the reason why people feel hopeless, I think, is not because of the meta surroundings, right, or the structural unfairness. I mean, you hear that argument politically being made, but in almost every situation or circumstance, it's because they don't have a good environment around them, right, whether it be family or friends or professionally, whatever it might be. But it's usually it's in the micro, but they're looking at the macro, right? And I mean, I've yet to see somebody who makes those complaints, but they have, you know, 2 loving parents or 1 loving parent, or, you know, close friends or close, you know, siblings who are there looking out for them. Usually those people aren't talking like that, right? And by the way, not everyone has to be ambitious, you know, in a professional sense. Some people could be ambitious in they just want to have kids, right? And they want to raise, you know, sweet, beautiful, you know, well-behaved kids. That's awesome too.
They want to own a home one day.
But, you know, but the beauty of the American dream is that not everyone wants to own a home, right? Like, I didn't buy a house until, like, you know, this past week, right? And, you know, like, I don't know, like, I was totally happy being in an apartment. Right? But the point being that the American dream, though, can look like whatever you want it to look like. You know, if you want to live out in the farm, you can go live in the farm, right? If you want to live in suburbs or whatever. I know people say, well, you got to have means. Actually, you know, like, it's amazing the number of people who can live at lower cost levels, because a lot of it's just depending. Like, I always hear from people, or especially when I was younger, right? And I see people like, oh, I don't have money, I don't have money. Almost every night they're out at the bar, they're getting a few drinks. And like, I would never be out, because, you know, I'm a little bit cheap, right? I'd never be out like spending, you know, $30 to have 2 beers, right? And so like, and you do that enough times, that adds up to real money, right? It just depends on how you want to look at it. But by the way, that's the American dream too. Like, if you want to spend your money that way, you can. That's what's so great about freedom.
What do you say to a young man who's grown up low income, single parent, maybe experienced some trauma, violence, maybe some mental health issues, but they watch Fox News and they see you and they say, I want to be him. Do you think he can actually do that?
Yeah, in this country, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you got to work hard. I mean, boy, I was, and there's a reason why I was decidedly single for years, right, throughout my 20s, because, I mean, I don't think that, you know, anyone would have wanted to, you know, be dating what I was like, but I was pretty, like, single-mindedly focused and intense, and I took on some big targets, right? I went after people, and I was successful, but, you know, I mean, working 80, 90, 100-hour weeks was commonplace, right? So if somebody says they want to have, I'm sorry?
We know that feeling all too well.
No, I think, look, anybody who thinks that there's some reason or some excuse why they can't achieve, they just need to look at themselves. And, you know, I think a lot of times it's just trade-offs or sacrifices people aren't willing to make, whether it be the extra work or whether it be they have to cut something out of their life, whatever it might be, right? And you can't have excuses, but you have to have willingness for trade-offs. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, and always be humble. Always looking at what you do that you screw up. And the best way to do that for me was just to get married, you know. She always reminds me. Kidding. She does, but you know.
You're the man. Appreciate you.
All right.
You're the man.
Thanks, guys.
Good. Wow, that was great lineup.
That was great, man.